had food if you were out there, because we always had chores to do at home too. I am not sure that children do have these chores that they have to do. And a private room? No. And you can't come into my room? Oh no. Now, that was not even thought of, because anything that you had, your mother and father gave you, therefore, they had access to it, really. I know, but in these private lives, but all that is a byproduct. But the thing that I did not like about integration was that, for the most part, all of the black principals and people who were in charge, they lost their jobs. Therefore, most of the people in charge were, white people, really, in terms, and the kids kind of lost their role models and that type of thing. So, and the schools that they had, they were either torn down or repurposed or whatever. They were not like the high schools that they graduated from. Some of them, they lost all the little trophies and whatever. But that history is gone forever now. And a lot of that happened in the state of Virginia, I know my husband he was in Lynchburg, Virginia. His school was torn down. They have a new school up there. But, whatever trophies and all they had, who knows where they are. And maybe they combined them with the new school. And in the school that I went to high school, Booker T. Washington in Norfolk, Virginia, another school was built in its place. It was an integrated school, and that school is now, I don't know whether they combine all the trophies or whatever. I'm not sure how integration was achieved, but I know that the principals became white, and the black principals, I don't even know that they even became assistant principals or whatever. But they did not have that prominent role in the community that they had because of the position they held during the integration part.
Well, I think it's interesting. You were a professor at Northern Virginia Community College.
Yes.
Probably right when it started.
Yes, my campus started. No, but Northern Virginia Community College started in about 65, 10 years before I came. So I came in 75.
What was that like? I haven't interviewed any African Americans that were on staff there, and that's such an iconic school. What was that like, being a professor there?
I guess I was sort of like a trailblazer in that, at least at the Woodbridge campus anyway, because I think I was the first college professor to preside over the graduation ceremonies. I was the top, the commencement exercise. I was the person who presided over all of the proceedings at graduation. I think we call it college marshal. So I was the first one. But the thing that is kind of interesting about this is that my picture was not in the paper. So the racists came out of the woodwork writing to me, because we had a black provost. That was kind of unheard of too. He was on the Woodbridge campus. They wrote nasty letters to me about him, accusing him of this and that and the other. They had graffiti. I said, oh my goodness.
And this was in the 70s.
This was in the 70s, because I didn't start there until 75. But yeah, it's 70s or 80s. I'm not sure what year exactly it was. But they thought I was white, so they wrote letters to me about him as a person and this, that, and the other. I, of course, showed it to him, gave it to him. But all these things happen, and they probably still happen on the campuses. I mean, they write ugly things about them. There are racists out here in Prince William County. They're still, I guess, members of the KKK, even though they're not out as strong as they used to be. But I mean, it's visible. But every now and then you read something where they've done something that is racist in nature. So,
Well, what was it like? You said you bought your first house here in Dale City or Prince William County in 1972.
in 1970, my husband bought it in 70. I didn't. He bought the house really.
Okay.
I moved in 1972, but I mean, I used to come up during the summers and stay until it's time for me to go back.
Well,
to
tell us about
school.
the neighborhood.
Okay, in the neighborhood, actually, the block that we lived in was basically white, except for us. And then later another black family moved in, but it was a white neighborhood. So I mean, when all of us moved in, I think one of my neighbors was shocked when they looked over there and saw that this black couple was in here. But by then, I mean, they didn't tell us about that until we became friends, and later on they told us that. And this lady, she married. He was Italian, but he looked Puerto Rican, apparently, according to her. And they used to tell us these stories about this, and that they mistook him for a Puerto Rican. This Italian guy, curly, dark hair, and this kind of thing. And she said that they tried to mistreat them because they thought he was Puerto Rican. You know, I was real sympathetic because she was German, he was Puerto Rican, and they had a family next door. And they, after they became real friendly, so they were shocked that there was a black family living next to their, most of their parents who were so outraged. I think they came from New York, but they, you know, they thought they were in a nice neighborhood and there was this black family next to them, you know. That was not something that they really relished, I'm sure, but I think they were making it seem more like it was it was the parents. But you know, we became friends. We went backwards and forwards. We sit on our decks together and talk. So we became friends. They were right next door to us. So yeah, and we got to know all the neighbors. As a matter of fact, one of the families in back of us, they had two cute little kids. They were white. They used to come there early in the morning. This is in the summer. And come sit and knock on my door. And here we go sit. And I give them little cookies and things. And we sit and we talk and all of that. No, we were all kind of friendly. There was no real problems except that we wanted more space. So that's why we moved to where we're living now. It's still in this area, but it's not in Dale City. At first we moved into Dale City. And that was the house that we could afford at the time. So we moved out, and it was a nice house. My mother always loved it and wondered why in the world we moved. Because, you know, her house was real tiny, a little bitty house down in Portsmouth, Virginia. But she loved it, and, you know, anyway, that was one neighbor. And then the neighbor below us was, they were white too. All of my neighbors, as I said, were white. My immediate neighbors, there was another black family that moved in up the street. But on the left side was another family. And they were young, and they had, because this was, back in 1970, so that's a long time ago. I guess I was young too at the time, about 30-some years ago, almost 40 years. And they had a little girl, and the little girl would, she was tiny, but she liked to play with me as, you know, I don't know, she just liked, I guess the little dark lady was different than she, so. So, I mean, you know, they were pretty nice. I mean, they moved in after we did, so they knew we were black, so they could have not moved in, really. But usually in a neighborhood where there are white people already there, and a black family, usually the typical thing is that all the white people move out once a black family moves in. That is typical, right? Particularly down there where I lived, and we lived in Norfolk in the Portsmouth area. But because they were integrated, I suppose, from the very beginning, that didn't happen. We moved out. I go over to the neighborhood now sometimes, and it's still basically just about all white, you know. But and we sold our house to a white couple. And they have since divorced, so they are not together, but another white couple is in the house. I ride by every now and then and look at it. You know, that was my first house.
Mhm.
You know, we used to live in
Yeah.
apartments and things like that.
Did you ever think how transitional it was? I mean, you grew up in this segregated world, and now you're buying a house in a white community. Did you ever stop and think about, wow, it's so different?
You know, no, not for me, because like I said, we grew up in a separate world. But when I met white people, like mostly when I went to graduate school, um, one of my very good friends was a white woman. She kind of looked out for me, I guess you might think. But I never had a problem, you know, dealing with them, really talking to white people, because I never thought of them as being different. I mean, a different color, but, you know, they were just people like I am. And so I didn't have a transition problem that I'm aware of. Anyway, you know, and I worked with white people once I left Norfolk State. Norfolk State was mostly black professors there. And I was called back because I was a smart student at the time, you know, and I went to graduate school, came back and taught there. That was an honor for me to teach at my alma mater. And so when I started teaching at Northern Virginia Community College, I mean, I related to white people just like I did to black people, because I'd already done it anyway. My full-time professor was white, and she looked out for us, took us out in the park, took the little southern girl and kind of introduced us to the culture. We went roller skating, we went to Carnegie Hall, went all kinds of places, you know, because coming from Norfolk, we hadn't really done those kind of cultural things. But
Because they weren't open to you?
I guess, and my mother didn't take us, and you know, I don't know, we just didn't do it. We didn't participate. We